Welcome to or welcome back to my channel. My name is LaShawn and this is Lush Uncut. So a few days ago, I made a video about the mainstream media setting out on the mission to rebrand Kamala Harris from trash politician to competent presidential hopeful. Even then, I didn't realize just how bad it was going to be in terms of them lying to the American public about Kamala Harris's record, the things she have done, her policies, and so forth. As you may or may not recall, one of Kamala's biggest failure was on her assignment as the Border Czar. Believe it or not, the media is now trying to convince you that that was never a thing.
Border Czar. Vice President Harris was not a border czar.
Meantime, Vice President and border czar Kamala Harris facing some backlash.
What he said about Harris and immigration was not true. She was never appointed border czar.
And this will be her first visit to the U.S.-Mexico border region since she was appointed as the border czar by President Biden.
People are going to have to counter the misinformation. You already hear folks talking about the border czar. She wasn't the border czar.
President Biden tapped Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, to be the border czar.
Now, she wasn't the border czar. That's what Republicans labeled her.
They were very critical of Kamala Harris, especially in her role as border czar.
Now what she's up against is folks lying about her border record, calling her a border czar.
Kamala Harris, who was appointed as the border czar.
The Biden team didn't declare her the border czar. They wanted her to work on kind of the root causes of immigration.
There has been so much criticism against Kamala Harris. You know, she was the border czar.
Calling her sort of the border czar, which wasn't necessarily the case.
So the border, if they weren't planning to address it in a major way, do not make her your border czar. She met with some of the Northern Triangle countries, but nothing has effectively changed.
You know, one of the glorious things about social media is that it has really broke down the veil between reality and media propaganda. Like, imagine if we didn't have social media. Imagine this was pre-X or pre-Instagram or just pre-social media, period. And the media was, trying to rewrite history in front of our faces. It will be very hard for us to show such hard evidence of the contradictions and the lies. The fact that we can have, someone put together side by side videos of them lying in plain sight and then share it. Because this compilation, this whole situation is all over social media today. I've seen it on X, I've seen it on Instagram. That's all really the only places I am on social media. But anyway, I've seen it all over my social media feed. So it's like millions of people get to see them lie in plain sight. The crazy part about it is the more they try to lie about Kamala Harris and her record and the things that she have done while she was VP, the more it gives credit to the fact that she's a trash politician. Because if she had all these actual accomplishments, if she had done such a good job, if the border was not, really her responsibility, then there would be no reason for them to lie in such an obvious way. So it's like, if you're going to keep lying to me about this woman and her ability to do the job that she's applying for, that makes me think that she probably is not going to be very good at the job that she's applying for, because y'all don't lie at all about President Trump's record, in a way to make him look good. You know what I mean? Y'all don't ever over talk Donald Trump and his accomplishments. If anything, the most y'all do is try to diminish his accomplishments. So they're really not helping her by lying to the American public in such an obvious way. It's actually making her look bad. In addition to that, this is exactly why the trust in the mainstream media is at an all-time low, because it's just so obvious just how dishonest they are. It's like they're looking at you in your face and be like, no, won't you remember that never happened? That never happened. The whole border thing, I remember she had that interview with, I think it was Lester Holt, when he was like, you haven't been down to the border. And she's like, we have been to the border. And he's like, you have not been to the border. And she's like, oh, I haven't been to Europe. Kiki. Like, that's on record. Like, we can see that. I've seen that clip again on social media plenty of times in the last couple of days, because we have to constantly be bringing up these receipts because these people are just so ridiculously dishonest. They have no journalistic integrity. They have no level of professionalism. They have no respect for their viewers and their audiences. So anyways, I am going to pivot for a second and talk about something else. And then I'm going to come around and kind of bridge the two topics. So yesterday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed Congress yesterday and talked to them about the war in Gaza and the need for America's continued support with the war. Now, I'm not going to talk about his speech or the fact that he was there because whatever. What I want to talk about is what was going on outside while he was inside talking to Congress. Take a look at these videos.
Back up!
I saw these two videos on X, and when I tell you I was filled with rage, I mean, if this doesn't anger you, then I don't know what century you're living in. It's not just about them burning the American flag, which I believe is a federal crime. Could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure it's a crime. And desecrating that monument. It's what those two things represent that they're basically pooping on. And it is ridiculous that they are able to do that with no consequences. The fact that they had time to do that and then get recorded and then it's posted on the internet and there's not mass outrage really speaks to where we are as a country and just how much we value this country's history. So that's one thing. The reason why I decided to play that video is because that is a representation of a Kamala Harris America. If Kamala Harris enters that White House on January 20 or whatever the date might be, 2025, give it 6 months and that's something that you're going to see regularly. And it's not just going to be in super blue cities and super blue states. It's going to be a widespread anti-Americanism that is going to be excused and ignored by the president, which is going to be Harris, let's just say hypothetically. So it's crazy because the media knows this, right? They know her policies. They know how left she is. They know how radical she is. But because they're so hell-bent and obsessed with beating Donald Trump, they're going to ignore those obvious problems with Kamala Harris and her policies. And again, even if, right, you think that she's going to be a great president, if you agree with her policies, if you agree with her stances, if you think that they're so fantastic, then you should be able to be honest about them. But they never do that. They lie across the board about everything. And they completely mislead the American public in terms of accurately presenting what a Kamala Harris administration is going to look like. And it's crazy because, and I'll say this whenever I get the opportunity to say it, these elite liberals, right? They shill for these terrible politicians and these terrible policies because they never have to face the consequences. They don't have to face the consequences of a bad economy. They can care less about this country's flag and its monuments and them getting desecrated because they genuinely don't have any love for this country. And they like to sit there and talk about America this and America the great and America this country about freedom and da-da-da. Well, all the policies that they support and all the politicians that they support are literally like prone for the destruction of America. They like to be all patriotic when it's convenient. The job of the American public in this election, and I don't care where you fall on the political line, and that is not to allow yourself to be deceived by the media. We know what things were like under Joe Biden. We know what his policies are. And if you don't, go look them up. If you're a super leftist and you think that open borders are fabulous, then go ahead and look at what the consequences of an open border means, okay? If you think that we should tax, people into oblivion to pay for universal health care, then go look into what that means. But don't allow the media to lie to you. Do your own research. Be better than that. Because if we allow them to trick enough Americans into putting Kamala Harris into the White House in November, then that gives them the illusion that they can continue to do this. And they can't.